Yesterday we spoke about the revolution that the rabbis staged against Rabban Gamliel because he was a harsh leader, and they removed him and appointed Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah as the head of the yeshiva. So they say, אותו היום סילקו לשומר הפתח וניתנה להם רשות לתלמידים להיכנס, שהיה רבן גמליאל מכריז ואומר, כל תלמיד שאין תוכו כברו לא ייכנס לבית המדרש. They had, Rabban Gamliel placed guardians at the entrance of the Beit HaMidrash, and he says, only people who are honest can enter the Beit HaMidrash. They can enter the hall of study, meaning that they're not hypocrites, that they study Torah for noble purposes. They're not looking to make a profit from it, but the problem is, how can you really tell? You can't tell unless you observe a person for a long period. And the rabbis viewed this measure by Rabban Gamliel more than it is something that really tries to filter students for high quality. They saw it as some kind of elitism. He's trying to limit the learning of Torah to give it only to an elite select group. So they removed the guardians, and it says, Ve'oto hayom nitosfu kama safsalim bebet hamidrash. Many benches were added, many people joined the study sessions. חלשה דעתו של רבן גמליאל אמר שמי חס ושלום מנעתי תורה מישראל. Rabban Gamliel felt bad because he did it out of really pure intentions, and he says, maybe I prevented people from learning Torah. And in his dream, he had a dream that night where he saw big white jars filled with ashes, meaning that the students that joined the Beit HaMidrash, the new students that came in, are really hypocrites because they show a shiny exterior, but inside they're full of ashes. But the Talmud comments on that, Velohi, it's not true. They were good people, but Hashem had mercy on Rabban Gamliel and calmed him down by sending him this kind of a soothing dream. In any case, Rabban Gamliel, as a result of this whole upheaval when he was removed from office, Amar, Ho'il vechach, elech va'afaisenu leRabbi Yoshua. He says, let me go and apologize to Rabbi Yoshua. This whole thing started because I offended Rabbi Yoshua. Remember that there were 3 cases, one with the new month, one with the Bechor, the firstborn animal that was injured, and the third one with the question about the prayer of Arvit, whether it's mandatory or optional. And after the third time that he offended him publicly, people removed Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel now had remorse. He says, let me go and apologize to Rabbi Yoshua. So he comes in. It's the first time that he visits Rabbi Yoshua, which also is telling. They've been colleagues for years now. The Rabban Gamliel is the head of the Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yoshua is his colleague. He never went to his house. First time he goes to his house, he comes in, he sits down, and he wants to strike a conversation, idle talk. He looks around and he sees that the walls are ashen. They are black with soot, with ashes. And today you would speak about the weather. It's hot. Like what's going to be tomorrow? At least you could say what the weatherman said. Back then, they didn't have radio, TV, or the weather app. So he speaks about what he sees around, and he says, "Oh, I see that your walls are blackened. I gather that you're a coal maker." Like he doesn't know what Rabbi Yoshua does for a living, and he says, "Okay, I assume that that's what you do for a living." Amar lo. So Rabbi Yoshua answers this: "Oy lo lador she'ata parnaso, ve'oy la lasfina she'ata kvarnita." He says, "Woe! Poor is the generation that you are the leader, and woe to the ship that you are the captain."
Who said to you?
You're Rabbi Yoshua to Rabban Gamliel. So he comes to apologize. He punches him. He punches him in the face. Like, you come to apologize, but he had a point. And we'll see later on, Rabbi Yoshua is not a cantankerous person. He made his halachic decisions privately, but he was pulled into the open by Rabban Gamliel. But in this case, he says, okay, if you come to apologize, this is like a lesson, a moral lesson. You come to apologize to someone, try to understand and to know where the other person is. He says, you don't know the other scholars who serve with you and the Bedin. You don't know what I do for a living. You don't know how I live. He says the walls were black, not because Rabbi Yoshua was a coal maker. He had a different profession. It's not clear, not written exactly what he did. But the blackened walls were because he used very cheap oil for light. You know the Mishnah that we read every Friday, Bameh Madlikin Uvameh Madlikin. What candles you're allowed to use for Shabbat and which candles you're not allowed to use. And there's a list of wicks and oils. And that list is part of the oils and the wicks mentioned in the list are those that could cause bad smell or a lot of smoke. Yeah, and see the alarm went off.
Yeah, that's weird.
The Mishnah says don't use those which create a lot of smoke because if it will bother you on Shabbat, you might end up putting out the fire, the candle, putting off the candle. So Rabbi Yoshua says his rebuke to Rabban Gamliel is that you and I only, for many years, only operate together on the professional level, but you never bothered to get personal, to know who I am, what I do. And it's an important message because when we talk about halakha, when you talk to people today about halakha, they say halakha is the dry law. That is the letter of the law. And black and white. Rabbi Yoshua tells Rabban Gamliel, no, it's not. Even the decisions that we make together as rabbis must be affected by the way we live. Or in other words, I live with the people. Maybe some of the decisions that I make are more in accordance with what the people feel. Interestingly enough, I know of a certain case, of a certain union of rabbis in a certain city in America, that one rabbi who works with Esha Torah applied to join that union, that committee or whatever, that board of rabbis. And the rabbis answered, says, we cannot accept you as a member. Why? Because you work in kiruv. Kiruv is outreach, meaning working with people that are not so religious and not so observant, etc. And so what is the problem? It says you might be too sensitive to their needs and you'll bend the halacha to their needs. Which is a ridiculous statement. It's the opposite of what Rabbi Yoshua says here. It says in order to be a rabbi and a leader, you have to know all segments of the Jewish society, and even not of Jewish society. You have to know where you live, who are the people that you're dealing with. If you don't know that, your halakha is not going to be appropriate. Anyway, Rabban Gamliel answers, Amar lo na'aneti lecha, mehali. He says, na'aneti is not just from the word to reply, from the word da'ani. Like, I lower myself in front of you, I agree. I made a mistake, please forgive me. Lo ishgiach bo. So he says, no, I'm not doing that. And he made him really work hard. Eventually he says, Aseh b'shvili kevod Abba. He says, not for me, do for the honor of my family. Rabbi Yoshua says, okay, I forgive you. So they said now they reconciled, but they have to tell the rabbis because all the rabbis are aligned with Rabbi Yoshua, with the rebels, sort of. So they found that they had a laundryman, a washer who used to work in the area. He says, I'm going to tell them. So because he was a washer, so his work is with the garments. Rabbi Yoshua sent with him the following message. He says, he who used to wear madim today's uniform, but back then means regalia, like honorary garments, like royal garb. He who was used to it, let him wear it, and he who was not used to it, let him not wear it. Meaning, I did not come from this established families. I was not the leader. I don't need that. Let Rabban Gamliel resume his post. אמר להם רבי עקיבא לחכמים, הגיפו הדלתות שלא יבואו עבדיו של רבן גמליאל ויצערו את החכמים. Rabbi Akiva hears the message, he doesn't accept it. It doesn't sound genuine to him. He says, and Rabbi Yeshua sends this sort of a hidden message, an encoded message, because there's this. It's almost like when I say coup d'état, maybe they put a siege on the Bet Midrash, this group, that group. So he sends this encoded message. Rabbi Akiva rejects it. He says, lock the doors now, because Rabban Gamliel's servants are going to come and bother us, because he has as the royal family, he has a royal status, and he has servants, and they have the authority to almost administer physical punishment or force. They're afraid of this kind of conflict. So now the koves, the washer, comes back. He says, it didn't work. I couldn't deliver the message. Rabbi Yeshua says, I'm going to go myself. He goes, and he says something similar. He says, Yavo mazeh ben mazeh yazeh, she'eno lo mazeh velo ben mazeh. That sounds like, it's a tongue twister. He says, he who sprinkles the water of paraduma, which means the Kohen. A Kohen can continue being a Kohen. I'm not a Kohen. I cannot depose the Kohen. Meaning, he said that to be the leader, you need a certain status, a certain following, even though he might not have believed in it 100%, but that is the way that he did. He made the public appeasement. And when they did this, Amar lo Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yoshua, nitpayasta? Oh, Rabbi Akiva from within says, oh, it's you, Rabbi Yoshua. Now you're fine. Now you're happy. Klum asinu ela bishvil kevodecha. All that we did, we only did for you. It says tomorrow we're all going to go. It was a delegation to Rabban Gamliel. So interesting. So finally they came sort of full circle. Rabban Gamliel dealt harshly with Rabbi Yoshua. The other rabbis, now we realize, remember when we said yesterday that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who asked the question which created the less conflict. It was done deliberately. Maybe even between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon, who were very close together, they staged that conflict in order to wake people up to say, look what Rabban Gamliel is doing. And but their intention was not to completely destroy the existing order, just to create some kind of understanding of the hierarchy. For Rabban Gamliel to understand that even though he is the leader, he has to be more sensitive and more open to the opinions of the other rabbis and to treat them with greater respect. So eventually they went back to the original order. They reestablished Rabban Gamliel, but they gave him 2 weeks for 2 Shabbatot for Rabban Gamliel and 1 Shabbat for Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So maybe it's the first system we have a chief rabbi and an associate rabbi. And people used to ask, Shabbat shel mi, whose Shabbat is today? Because they wanted to know who was the one who spoke at the Bet Midrash on that day, whether it was Rabban Gamliel or Rabbi Yoshua.